Hey y'all, this is Sharinda Pringle, teaching African American History 101, Facing Fear, Overcoming Trauma. Let's get right into it. And for those of you who really don't understand why I started with the African slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, let me just explain something. First off, broaden your mind so you won't be left behind. I'm going from the 16th century and working my way up because cycles repeat themselves. And if you're someone who are taking this course because you're going through repetitive cycles, then you have a clear understanding of why I'm going through this. We have to figure out where we've been and figure out what's still within us to pinpoint what it is so we can get rid of it and get off the hamster wheel. So if you're tracking with me, let's go. I want to talk about the alleged Willie Lynch doctrine. I say alleged because some people say that William Lynch, who was a very rich slave owner, had this meeting off the James River in 1712. The meeting was in anticipation that slavery would be abolished at some point. Because, folks ain't just going to keep working for free. And time again, people here showed them that they were not willing to stay. And so people think that the Willie Lynch doctrine was to keep people on the plantations working for free, but it was to keep generations broken long after they were emancipated. There were some key things, key elements that I want to point out, and we can still see the residue of those elements today. Pit them one against each other. Pit a husband against his wife. During that time, you weren't even allowed to be legally married. People had their own weddings where they jumped over the broom and were put into a union because even though folks were telling them that they were not supposed to be married, they still understood the union of marriage. And so one of those things was to pit them against each other. And in doing that, they would take a husband out of his home and put him right next door or down the street and have him to go over there with Sophia and make some more babies. They would have him to then go back into the fields where his other woman was. And they would be pitted against each other, the women. The man would be in an awkward position because it wasn't even at that time a position that he chose. But as generations started to do this, women started to nurture the men in their families, their sons, as though they were the head of the household. Because they knew that one day, even if the man was still in their house, he was destined to leave and to go someplace else and make babies. To this day, a man will leave his house and go raise somebody else's children. pit a mother against her daughter. How do you do that? You diminish the value of a woman when she gets older. And you start to praise the daughter for her beauty and her strength, her positive qualities as whatever they saw them as in that day. To this day, you have some women who don't admire their daughters, but they hold jealous and envy of their daughters. Pit dark skin against light skin. We all know that women were taken against their will. And so they had mixed babies. And the lighter babies who grew into adults would be treated better and held as a prize by the overseers and the masters in the community. And dark-skinned people were treated terribly. The lighter you were, the better position you got. If you were really dark, you had to serve out in the heat, in the cornfields, in the cotton fields, doing hard labor. And if you were light, you got to stay in the house so that your skin would stay milky. You know, and as it happened when we created sororities and fraternities for Black communities, they did the paper bag test. So if you were a certain shade, you were not allowed to join a certain community group. And to this day, there are some people who still consider, you know, fuller lips, which people are paying for, darker skin, which people are paying to get a nice crispy tan. But I was just in Japan where they tried to sell me a product to bleach my skin. And I told them, no, sweetie, I appreciate a good tan. I'm not from that era. I'm Black and I'm proud. These are some of the things that still plague our societies today. Now, I want you all to think about how these things affect you in your household, how these things affect you in your marriage, because now we're living in a state of brokenness where people are questioning their self-worth. Because regardless of what they do, they're body shamed. If you have a fuller body, which by the way people are paying for too, there's still body shaming that go along with that. That goes back to those historical Willie Lynch doctrines, whether it's alleged or not. We picked up those mores in our society, and they have become embedded in the strands of our communities. Where even if you get a good man, his loyalty is not to his wife, it's to his mama. And there are a lot of men in society now who think that it's okay to degrade women and to have multiple children outside of the household, and they think that women are supposed to stay with them. Because culturally, they've been taught in the garages, on the baseball fields, on the basketball courts, on the football fields, in the locker, that, the more notches you have in your belt, the better. There are women who have a lower self-worth, and they don't trust a man. They say all men are bad. They can do it by themselves. They don't need anybody. And things are all screwed up, mixed up, entangled. And it comes with a level of brokenness that through fear, anxiety, depression, cause levels of addiction, cause levels of abuse. One of the things, whip them to keep them in line. And we pass on whipping to our children, where then we have men whooping us like they are daddies, and don't see anything wrong with it. And get upset when you rise up and think that something is wrong with it. But I am just so grateful that through therapy, I have had the opportunity to speak to women who were broken and thought all men were dogs and they'd never get married again. And to speak to men who were broken and thought women only had one or two good values: cooking and making babies, and a few things in between cooking and making babies. And allow them to heal those broken wounds that came from generational curses that had been handed down from our great-great-grandparents to our great-grandparents to our grandparents through our parents. And if we want a better life for our children, excuse me, y'all, my dog is distracting me. She wants my attention, but I'm going to finish this before I take her for her W word. But there is power to heal once we're able to face those fears. Doesn't matter if those fears come from pains from violence, pains from experiencing addictions, pains from any of those things that were passed down. It doesn't matter what trauma it is attached to. We're going to start to do the work so that we can actually face those fears and untangle those threads that have become intertwined in our now lives, so that they will not affect our future and the future of our children. Next, we're going to talk about from the cotton fields to the boardroom. And we're going to do that Friday at around the same time. And that lesson is going to be how our founding fathers who held slaves built our government and built the corporations and the organizational policy around us that have us in fear at our jobs. Until then, remember, broaden your mind so you won't be left behind. I love y'all. If you all appreciate what I'm doing, please let me know I'm not wasting my time. Like, share, comment. Let me know that you're doing your homework. Next week, if anybody is interested, I want to do a Zoom so we can actually have a question and answer session. But in order for me to do that, people will have to let me know that I'm not wasting my time. If you are not able to find my videos, please go on to my YouTube. My YouTube handle is at Sharonda Pringle. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Watch. Like. Let me know that I'm not wasting my time. If I find I'm wasting my time, I'll find me something better to do. Thank you. I love y'all. Bye-bye.